Sure, everyone knows the classics like The Green Mile, The Shining, and The Shawshank Redemption. But not every Stephen King adaptation gets the same attention. These 7 films may not come up in every conversation, but they're absolutely worth watching. One day, Thad Beaumont decides to stop writing trashy crime novels under his pen name, George Stark. But the publishing world has its own rules. Either you keep churning out bestsellers under a fake name, or you write serious books that no one wants to publish. While Thad wrestles with his career choices, someone starts killing people close to him and the fingerprints left at the crime scenes. They all belong to Thad Beaumont. The original novel, The Dark Half, is a solid read, though not essential. But the movie adaptation is a different story, and that's thanks to George Romero, who directed it. The Dark Half blends gritty action, supernatural thriller, and straight-up horror into one tight, well-paced film. Definitely worth a watch. A mysterious man in a long coat and hat arrives in Castle Rock and opens a shop called Needful Things. It's not your average store. It somehow always has exactly what each customer secretly desires: rare baseball cards, porcelain teapots, childhood relics. And the price? No cash, just a small favor, a prank, a phone call, a delivery. But those favors quickly spiral into chaos, turning the quiet town into a nightmare of violence and revenge. The story builds with eerie tension and a great sense of creeping dread, right up until the bizarre, over-the-top ending that undercuts everything that came before. Without that stumble, Needful Things might have been remembered as a King classic. Storm of the Century has a lot in common with Needful Things. A mysterious stranger shows up in the small, tight-knit town of Little Tall. He doesn't open a shop or ask for favors. Instead, he brutally murders an old woman in her home. The townspeople manage to catch him, but it does little good. A massive blizzard is rolling in, one of the worst in the town's history. And now the residents must survive not just the storm and a killer, but their own buried secrets. Stephen King wrote Storm of the Century as a screenplay from the start, so the adaptation feels natural. Sure, the miniseries may feel a bit dated today, some acting is uneven, and the pacing drags in places, but the story itself is compelling. You'll want to stick around just to find out who this eerie stranger really is, and why he seems to know everything about everyone. Cat's Eye is a horror anthology made up of 3 short stories, each tied together by the presence of a wandering stray cat. 2 of the segments stand out as particularly strong: Quitters Incorporated and The Ledge. Both are tightly constructed, suspenseful, and surprisingly dark. In Quitters Incorporated, a man desperate to quit smoking turns to a company whose methods are more terrifying than effective, including electric shocks, kidnapping, and threats against his family. In The Ledge, a wealthy man forces his wife's lover to walk around the narrow ledge of a high-rise building, hundreds of feet in the air, just to earn a second chance at life. These stories are sharp, fast-paced, and carry a biting sense of social commentary. Cat's Eye remains a great example of how King's shorter works can be adapted into compact, suspenseful, and highly watchable films. Billy Halleck is a wealthy, overweight lawyer living the good life. Big income, country club connections, not a care in the world. But one day he accidentally runs over an old Romani woman with his car. Her husband places a curse on him, and Billy starts losing weight at an alarming rate. A pound a day, with no end in sight. At first he's thrilled. He's never looked better, not even in his youth. But the weight keeps dropping, and soon he realizes he's not getting fit. He's wasting away. The only person who can lift the curse is the one who cast it, and he's in no hurry to help the man who killed his wife. Thinner is a classic 90s horror flick, well-paced, with sharp character motivation and a solid dramatic core. It's not exactly terrifying by today's standards, but it's still a gripping watch. Snappy dialogue, escalating madness, and the unsettling idea that real monsters sometimes wear suits and ties, all of it makes for a strong and memorable King adaptation. If any movie deserves to be called the ultimate Stephen King adaptation, it's Maximum Overdrive. King not only wrote the script, based on his short story Trucks, but also directed it himself. The plot is pure madness. After a green comet passes Earth, machines and electronics come to life and start killing humans. A group of survivors takes shelter in a roadside diner, trying to survive a siege by bloodthirsty trucks. Critics trash Maximum Overdrive for King's amateur direction, a cliché-ridden script, and wild overacting. But audiences embrace the chaos, just like King had promised in the trailers. Tired of others ruining his stories, King decided to do it his way. A loud, violent B-movie explosion of mayhem, killer trucks, and an AC/DC soundtrack. Was it a good movie? No. Was it a blast? Definitely. After directing Salem's Lot, Tobe Hooper returned to Stephen King with The Mangler, based on the short story of the same name. The film takes place in a small New England town where an industrial laundry has a disturbing track record. Workers keep getting injured, or worse. But it's not just poor safety standards or a greedy boss to blame. The real threat is the laundry's massive steam-powered press, which seems to have a mind of its own, and a hunger for human flesh. The Mangler is a fairly standard horror film, complete with jump scares, gore, and a heavy dose of absurdity. But there's something oddly compelling about its mix of blue-collar dread and supernatural menace. It's not a great movie, far from it, but it leans into its own weirdness just enough to make it a fun, one-time watch.